So now, without any further ado, let's get this conversation started. We are extremely fortunate to have my fellow WNBA champions, all-stars, gold medalists, and legends with us here today. Katie Smith, Taj McWilliams-Franklin, and yep, I am going to say it, I saved the best for last, Miss Cynthia Cooper. And to tip us off, the sports siren herself is here from ESPN. It's Holly Rowe.
Thank you. I think this is so exciting. I'm trying not to be a geek and try to be like a grown-up moderator, but I'm like, oh my gosh, we are on with these incredible legends of the WNBA, some in the ABL, but we go back to the WNBA days with some of the most amazing women that we have ever seen take the basketball court. So for our discussion tonight, we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but we are coming off one of the most unprecedented WNBA seasons in history. And so we want to touch a little bit on this season, how it went, and the experiences of some of these women who were working and living in the WNBA bubble, and also get what they are doing after basketball, what they have done moving forward with their careers after they got done playing, and what advice they can have for the rest of you on getting through this unusual time. We're still in a worldwide pandemic, and just how we can all kind of stick together and learn from each other. I think coaching is always good, no matter what level you are in basketball. Even when you're retired, I think coaching is always wonderful. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderating guests for tonight. Cynthia Cooper. I don't know how many accolades I can say on here because it would take too long to say all of hers, but let's just say finals MVP, 4-time WNBA champion, led the league in scoring 3 straight years for the WNBA in the 97 and 1998 MVP, Cynthia Cooper.
Hey guys.
Applause sound. Wow, like applause.
Yeah, no, I'm totally excited to be here. I can't wait for the incredible conversation.
Absolutely. And then joining us now is one of the more unusual stories in the WNBA. I always hold her up as someone who overcame every possible odd to have an epic WNBA career. Taj McWilliams-Franklin, 6-time WNBA All-Star, but one of the only third-round draft picks to ever really stick in the league and have great success. Just a beautiful, wonderful example for us of what to do in overcoming adversity and really shining when her moment arose. WNBA champion in 2011 with the Minnesota Lynx. We call her Mama Taj, Taj McWilliams-Franklin.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I hope this is going to be awesome. I'm going to have lots of fun. I'm excited about Coop, about Katie, Holly. This is going to be amazing.
Awesome. And you said it, we have another legend for the WNBA, Katie Smith. First start off in the ABL, 2-time ABL championship with the Columbus Quest. But of course, she took those skills to the WNBA, where she was the 2008 WNBA Finals MVP, an All-Star, became the first American female to score 5,000 points in a professional career. She is a true legend, Katie Smith.
Thanks, you guys. Glad to see everybody here, joined with the celebs on the panel, and obviously Holly, and good to see you guys again. We spent a lot of time together.
So, okay, I don't want to leave Cynthia out, but I want to get to that because we have just gone through together one of the more unique and unusual situations of my lifetime. I've been covering sports for 25 years, and living and working in the WNBA bubble has to go down as one of the most rewarding and also challenging experience of my lifetime. So Taj, I'll start with you. You were there in the WNBA bubble working for the WNBA, and I think it's a beautiful thing that you went from playing in the league to now you are mentoring the young generation of players in the league and working for the league office. What was your experience like in the WNBA bubble, and how were you able to excel in that challenging environment?
Well, for me, I would compare it to Russia. It was when I was in Russia, I had that same feeling where I couldn't go anywhere. I was very limited, the amount of interaction with other people. But it was actually pretty rewarding for me because you get all of the teams, all of the players, coaches, refs. I engage with all of them with my role, but just having that much basketball for someone that loves basketball, no matter what, I want to see it. I love it, whether it's mini kids, high school, I love basketball. So being in that type of atmosphere, working for the league, I got to see way more than I would if we were in a normal season. In a normal season, I maybe would have been able to travel and see, half the teams. In that situation, I was able to see all of them, talk to the coaches, talk to GMs, talk to some of the CEOs, and then talk to the officials, have dialogues with them as well. And so for me, it was great because that's my role, but for others, maybe not so great. I know, just like I said earlier, the testing thing kind of gets to you, but you also feel a margin of safety because everyone's being tested constantly. And that provided us a little bit of respite, because I wasn't too worried about the coronavirus. I was just worried about players and who's getting injured and what they're doing.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful and unique environment because you would be, I mean, I'm not even joking. This is how surreal it would be. I would be in the lunch line, this buffet line, and it would be like Bill Laimbeer in front of me and Katie Smith behind me. And we're like chit-chatting in the lunch line with everybody. And you just got to interact with literally everybody who is in the WNBA right now in this really beautiful and empowering type of way. And Katie Smith, I wanted to bring you in next because you were coaching for the Minnesota Lynx, and there were a couple of moments that I would look at the bench for the Minnesota Lynx, and you have Cheryl Reeve, one of the best coaches we have in basketball right now. Then you have Lynette Pearson, Rebecca Brunson, Katie Smith, who have been at the very highest level at players, and they're all on one staff and it's all women. And I was just like, this is so bad. I don't know if I can swear on this, but I'm like, badass. These women were amazing. What was that like for you to be such a power group of women who've done it, who've lived it, and now you are mentoring that next generation?
It felt great. I didn't know, I knew Planette was on staff when I was talking to Cheryl about coming on board. And, Reeve's always been a friend and mentor throughout my playing and then transitioning into the coaching. Just somebody who I respect both, on and off, and how she speaks her mind and stands up for things. And it just really is her authentic self. But when she's like, she's had a couple assistants, male assistants, go off and get head jobs quickly. Has been on her staff. Mm-hmm. They've spent a couple years and boom, they head out and they've had success and they've gotten these jobs. She's like, well, then let me, my women, like, what, I need to get these guys on board. So she was just thinking in her head, like, I need to do this. And, obviously I was one, Planette was already on staff as kind of their player development, like kind of a third assistant, before we were allowed to have 3 on the bench if you have a former player. And then I didn't know her whole Rolodex of people she was interested in for the last spot. But then she mentioned that, Rebecca Brunson was who she's offered the job to, and obviously whether she wanted it or not. And I was like, awesome. You know what I mean? And Reeve knows her both personally and as a player and what she'd bring to the table. And she's like, I want an all-female staff. And I want, and also our video coordinator, Ashley McGee. Another one, wanted to bring on somebody else to allow her to get her foot in the door in the WNBA in that way. Because that's ultimately a way to get into the coaching ranks, right? I mean, it's not just coaching, assistant coach. You can be a VC, learn all the ropes. And then the WNBA, as some of you guys know, you're multitasking. You're doing film, you're doing scouts, you're in practice running drills, you're drawing up, you know what I mean? Like, so you got your hands in everything. So the VC is just as much a part, maybe not this year, just because we can only have a certain amount of people in the bubble. But yeah, she was like, I'm doing this. Like, this is part of her job. She feels a responsibility to teach the next generation. And, I just, was lucky to be on her staff and to continue to learn. And I would love to do the same thing. I want to, I know I was, purposeful when I was in New York and tried to bring on, players and other, women. We had a diverse staff, and I feel like that's our job overall, is to help each other out and to learn from each other. And it wasn't Planette versus me and versus Rebecca, right? It's not, what do I know over you? And I've been coaching longer than you and I'm sharing like, hey, we used to do this, or we used to do this. And same thing if questions, or if I'm not very good at video stuff, like, it takes me forever to do a PowerPoint on certain things, like, right? So I'm like, Planette, like, how do I do this? So it's us using each other, not being scared about somebody getting the credit. It's just us in it together. And I think that's where it just felt so good. And then one other thing we did, Tanisha Wright kind of put it together, is the unique thing about us being in a bubble. All the head coaches, all the assistants, and he put together a round table with, I think, 5 or 6 head coaches and Tamika Catchings as a GM. So we had a round table about, and we're able to ask questions to some of the legendary coaches, Tebow, Brian Agler, Reed, Bill, Catch, and Sandy, and pick their brain about what they're looking for, some of the stumbling blocks that they had, what they suggest as an assistant. What do they, you know what I mean? So it was amazing to have that opportunity, because we're not going to have it. I'm not sure if we'll do it again, but it was a chance for us to actually sit down and have these questions in one place and use each other. So that's the collaborativeness of it all, is pretty amazing. I think we have it in our game, and especially the W, it's always been pretty good.
I believe that the WNBA will come out of this situation of being in the bubble as a stronger league, because we all were able to forge these relationships that we wouldn't normally. And I think it was a very positive thing in a difficult year and environment that we came out in a better place. Ratings were up 68%. The finals ratings were up. Social media, digital activations and interactions were up. And I just think it's important. Speaking now with Cynthia Cooper, as Coop, you are viewed as one of the all-time greats, if not the GOAT. And having that top of mind that the WNBA is hot, that they're trendy, that they're present, how important was the step you felt like the women made and the league made in what could have been a disastrous year, and instead they turned it into a huge step forward?
Yeah, I for one, am a huge basketball fan. So, I mean, being in the bubble is like being in basketball Disneyland. I would just stay there for the rest of my life, and I would have been there just, feeding off the energy of everyone there. So, I thought the WNBA did a fantastic job with promoting the league, promoting the players, getting the fresh. There was always fresh media, fresh things on social media for the fans to absorb, and I just thought they did a fantastic job, really emanating and showing their voice. They weren't silent. They were constantly taking a stand and making moves, and that drew in the interest of everyone. We were always on some social media platform looking at, or supporting what the W was doing. And so for me, that was amazing, just to see all of the marketing and the players in the different areas that they were strong in. Some social media, some were playing video games, some were just showcasing what they did to blow off steam. And for me, being a basketball junkie, I would have been like in heaven. And you can't wait. We can't go anywhere, and I get to play basketball every day, all day, and I'm around all athletes. I'd have been like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. So for me, I was like, I want to be in the bubble. I want to be in the WNBA. I wanted to play again. That's how excited I was for everything the W accomplished this season.
Yeah, it was really special and really unique. I love what you're saying. Angel McCautry told me a great story. She's one of the greats in this league. She's such a great scorer. And she said, I was sitting there one day in the wobble, and she's coming off injury. She hadn't played for 2 years. And she was like, I'm going to go over and ask Diana Taurasi or Tamika Catchings how she got back from injury, or how they elongated their career. And I thought it was really cool that she was like, we are all together for the first time ever. How can we feed off of each other and learn from each other? So I thought it was a really cool situation. Mm-hmm. All right, Cynthia, I want to stay with you for a moment, because we are we're touching on this very unprecedented time that we're on in our country right now and in our lives. And we were joking a little bit before that those of us I think I worked 53 games in 87 days in the WNBA bubble.
Wow.
It was insane. And it was a real challenge for me, but I think we're struggling in our world right now. Nothing, like, I'm trying to get organized for college basketball season. I don't know where games will be. I don't know when I'll be working. I don't know anything what's ahead with my basketball schedule. And I have so much anxiety because I haven't been able to plan my life. And so I wanted to talk to you about what you've done to manage, and if you could share maybe some things you've had a difficult time with and overcome, and any advice you would have for those of us who are kind of struggling right now. Nothing's normal. And those of us who are planners, we don't do well with nothing normal. So how can we help each other, or some ideas of coping with this uncertain time?
I would simply say you've got to be able to control the things you can't control and not worry about the things you can't control. And certain things are in your control. You can wear a mask, you can go vote, you can do certain things, and those things are in your control. But to sit down and be in a situation where you're out of your norm and things aren't the way they usually are, and you worry about them when you can't do anything about it, I think it exacerbates the problem. It frustrates you, and you get a sense of, one, anxiety, but two, your self-worth. You're questioning your self-worth. Like, am I being a productive citizen? And so for me, what I've used to really be successful and really keep my head during this trying time is only worry about the things I can control. Like my twins, I have boy-girl twins. One is in school in Los Angeles at Pepperdine, and one is at Furman. And so I don't get to see them. I didn't get to go to Furman to, move my daughter in, or I don't get to see my son all the time and travel the way I would like to travel and see them because of everything that's going on. Those are things I don't control. So I get on the phone, I get on FaceTime with them. I do every other thing that I could possibly do that's in my control in order to continue to have lines of communication with my twins and the kids I love so much. So for me, it's worry about what you can control and stop getting frustrated on things with things that you cannot control.
That is really beautiful advice. I think I have been struggling too with, my life revolves around sports. And, we went 6 months with no sports, and I've kind of been judging myself like, you need to get a life, girl. All I care about is going to games or working games. And I've realized I have a very, that's all I care about. And so I've been judging myself for not being more well-rounded or having a life. And I just wonder, Katie Smith, I know we talked about, you've got your family, you've got other things, but who are you outside of basketball and what you've done? And how do you maintain your self-esteem, when sports aren't going, and we can't revolve around that?
Yeah, and I think it's hard, right? Because we all like to identify with and staying busy, and this is what we're doing, and we like to know we're going to have a job and we're going to have income and all that. And it's and it gives us something to prep for. But I think for me, it's the balance, and I've been lucky to, over the years of having my family and kind of like this network of people who kind of take my mind off of your house. I mean, I've done more housework and some little things I've been putting off for like basically 15, 20 years since I've had the house. You know what I mean? You just don't do it. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put up some shelves in the basement and we go through my stuff. Right. So I've tried to do some things and like, hey, don't put it off on the things that I can kind of do. So kind of stay busy there and spending time with those that I love, because I also know that this isn't going to last forever, like where we're at. And we're all going to jump on planes. We're all going to be leaving. We're all going to be doing and getting busier and busier and busier, right? Like we always are. But also, I'm trying to stay present and control the things you can of enjoying the downtime with people and enjoying when you're home and your family. So that's really how I am. It's a lot like Coop said, it's just trying to control the things you can, but also try to prep for what's next. Like, what do you want to do? Starting to kind of look inside of, all right, what's next for you, right? Like, coaching that's what I'm doing right now, but man, what other ways? How else do you create other things? What other interests? So I think you're always kind of reflecting or have that self-reflection of, all right, this is where I'm at right now. And just kind of being adaptable. Because I think we've all learned a little bit that these things, like, there's other ways to do things, right? We just can kind of figure it out through this time. So I think it's enjoying kind of the moment, being present, and then just kind of prepping and trying to still do your job to the best way you can, with not knowing kind of how the schedule is going to look.
So I love something you said there about planning for other opportunities. What else can you do? And Taj McWilliams-Franklin, I've really admired this about you because, I covered your last championship in Minnesota in 2011. I hate to say this, you were the oldest player to ever win a WNBA championship. I'm going to say you were the most veteran, experienced player to ever win a WNBA championship. But you have reinvented yourself many times coming out of the league. You went into coaching. Mm-hmm. Now you're working for the WNBA office. And I'm just wanted to get your viewpoint of, you have been super adaptable. And how would you communicate with our listeners on some pros of things you've done well to adapt and advance your career, and things you're like, you know what, I could have done that better. Maybe I should have done it like this. What have you learned about yourself?
Well, I've learned a lot. One is, as Coop said before, I don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. I think basketball is part of an identity for myself, for others. It just depends on where your focus is. So coming from a small school, NAIA school, coming into the league unheralded, playing overseas, being in the ABL, losing to Katie Smith in the finals, all those things develop a mentality that you know you're going to have to work at everything you get. And for me, it was always about what's next in terms of how can I feed this energy that I have? I have a constant flow of energy, which is good and bad, you know, because sometimes it leads me to positions that may not have been the best for me, but I was really excited about the opportunity to learn and grow. And I think some of the things as human beings we do is when we are finding new trails to blaze, we maybe go down the wrong trail because it looked really great. And I think that's okay. You fall, you get up, you dust off, you recognize their strengths that you've learned from that. And there's some things that you don't want to take from that situation. And I think for me, reinvention is that falling down and then the reassessing of what you can take from it and what you need to leave behind and kick the dust on. And for me, I've been through a lot of those situations. And even within this position, I was with the NBA first for 2 years. I got offered this position, honestly, in January of this year. So I haven't been with the W in a formal sense that long. I was with the NBA. And just moving to the W, I was like, is this something I want to do? Is this going to fill my mindset of service? And that's where the positives and the negatives come from. Sometimes I'm in positions because I want to serve that I kind of get overused and it burns me out. That's something I learned throughout all these positions, not to be burned out, because I'm so willing to do whatever is needed to help that I get burned out, because some people don't have a filter where they can say, okay, maybe this is too much for me to ask her to do. And then I don't have a filter where I'm like, whatever you need, I'm here to serve. Oh, 4 a.m., I can do that. You know, midnight, I can do that. 9 a.m., I can do that. That's some of the things that I've learned that probably aren't good for me. Also, networking. I wish I could do that better. I still have that in between where I feel like when I call someone and ask them for something, it feels inauthentic to me. I call people and just talk to them. I want to genuinely know how they're doing. I don't normally call my networking friends alliance to ask for help with something, whether it's a job or a recommendation or a person that they think may be good for this. I feel like that is a huge space for me to grow in and develop, because I don't recognize that I have that type of influence with people. And then people always tell me, you can call me for anything, but I never do, because I feel like it's somehow something wrong with me if I need to ask them or I'm using them for something. So networking is a big thing for me, not being burnt out and understanding the difference between working hard and burning yourself out. And the positives for me is I have seen so many different things. I mean, I worked all through college. I've worked at a counseling center. I've done IT work. Everything, basketball, camps, clinics. I worked for the IRS. I worked for the Department of Transportation. I have a plethora of jobs that I've done just for the experience and of knowing others. And for me, it all gives me that richness and diversity of thought. I mean, I've played in, 15 different countries for 20 years, 21 years overseas. And I take something from each one of those opportunities. And so I think when you're thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, you don't have to be so set. A lot of people are, but sometimes you're just going. I'm 50. I turned 50 a week ago, and I'm still really excited about what's the next chapter. And so whenever people are like, you're the oldest person to, have a title, I was really blessed to be in that situation first. But also, I didn't go there to win a title. I didn't think Minnesota was actually going to win a title. Let me be clear. I went there because I wanted to learn about those people that were there. I loved Revo. As Katie said, she's a mentor to me, someone I trusted. I loved her vision for the team, but I wanted to know Maya more. I wanted to know Monica Wright. I wanted to be closer to Simone Augustus. I played with Lindsay before I played against Rebecca Brunson, but I went there for them and to learn about them and to learn about Minnesota, one of the states I've never been in. So I think my reinvention, it's because I'm really more interested in the process of growing and learning new things. And that continual growth and learning is what fuels me.
That's beautiful. So for people listening, I just want you to know at the end of this, we'll have a question and answer period so you can ask more specific questions to each panelist. But Cynthia Cooper, we talk a little bit about reinvention. When I was in the bubble, I saw this kind of feature come out about you, that you didn't get to the WNBA until you were 34 years old. Like in this day and age, now we think that that's an old player. Angel McCoughtry is 33 and we think she's older. And I just am fascinated that your career that we're all aware of in many ways started later in your life. And I want your advice or your opinion for those listening of why did you have such confidence and belief in yourself at that age that you could, one, still produce, and that you were still writing your story? You weren't complete yet. How were you able to do that?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the things that I will say is that I love basketball. I wouldn't be doing anything else other than playing basketball, and I would have played in the WNBA for free because that's how much I love basketball. So, for me, I had been playing in Italy for 10 seasons and got the opportunity to play in the WNBA. And I wanted to take full advantage of not just playing in the WNBA, but being a pioneer and leaving a legacy in the WNBA. I thought that was important for me to make some sacrifices so that other players, future players, will have the opportunity to play in the W and excel in the W and dream about being in the W and a part of the W, being a star, being an MVP. That was my motivation. And it was my motivation every day. And so I worked out before practice, during practice, and after practice, so that when I performed on the court, when I reached the court, it was something that everyone could be proud of, everyone could get behind. And it was something that hopefully inspired the next player, the next person, the next generation, so that they could come even better, bigger, better, do it better than me. Don't do it like me, do it better than me. And that was my mantra. That was my energy. That was my reason why. So I wanted to be the very best that I could be for the sport I love to play. And I would have been playing anyway. And then the other thing is, I didn't want to bring a broken product to the floor. I didn't think that would bring fans in. I didn't want to lean on my age or the fact that I spent my best years over in another country playing in front of their fans and their families. I wanted to bring the very best of my game to the WNBA. And even though I started in the WNBA at 34, I was kind of a late starter anyway. I didn't start playing basketball till I was 15 years old. I went to a university with Cheryl Miller and the McGee twins, so I came off the bench. I really didn't start to develop and come into my own until I went overseas. And then I gave them numbers. I'm just saying, numbers. And I brought that energy back home so that I could do that in front of family and friends and fans and really leave something behind in the W so that the next generation didn't have to start where we started.
That's a beautiful way to say it, because I really believe, I don't think the W gets off to the start that it did without the Houston Comets and without your quick success out of the box in this flashy, you and Sheryl and Tina. And I don't know that the W gets off to a great start and lasts like it has unless you are putting up those numbers. So thank you so much for that. It's so beautiful. Okay, Katie, I want to make sure we're hitting on topics that people may be interested in. Kind of the whole part of, the Alumni Association for both the NBA and the WNBA is making sure we're supporting each other and in what's next, what the next chapters look like. And Taj said something I think is very interesting. Sometimes we're afraid to ask for help or to use that network and use our contacts in basketball. I went to a seminar once and a woman said, women have to get better at using our social capital. We're all friends. Like, we all keep in touch. We text, we're friendly. Taj could ask me for anything and I would do it because she's Taj and I love her. And so we have to get better asking for things and asking for help. Hey, I have a friend who's launching a new business. Do you have anybody from the association that could come and support us? Do you have marketing people? I want women to get more empowered asking for help. How can we do a better job of that? And you in your coaching career and your networking, because you are good at networking, what could you tell us about being better with that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Taj is same. I feel the same way. And partly it's, so the coaching piece, like even when I became a head coach, you want to bring on former players, right? I mean, I have an affinity for former players. I want those that have kind of been there, done that, who love the game and want it to grow and give back to it, right? That's it, because it's just a different breed. But I was, searching for like kind of candidates in a sense, and you're like, well, who's there? Like, who wants to coach? And it's part of it is, and even thinking about being a head coach, like I caught myself saying, oh, well, maybe I'm not ready, or maybe it's too early, or I haven't done it enough. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. So, but again, I think us as women do that more than say a man who's just like, yo, give me the job. I'll figure it out. Like, whatever, I deserve this. Whereas we're more calculated, like we have, we want to be prepared. So I think part of it is first of all, trust yourself. Trust that you know what it takes to win. Trust that you have the work ethic, the tools, or the people skills, the relationship building, right? A lot of the things we can learn when we get a job, like the nuts and bolts. But trust that you can work with a team, work with a group of people, be flexible, handle all these situations, and trust that you have the knowledge to put it all together and understand what it takes to win, if that's coaching or any business. So part of it is your belief in yourself and owning it and putting yourself out there. And again, like Tosh said, you're going to get knocked down. I mean, I didn't get my contract renewed in New York, and it was like, right, because everything's personal because it's you. But it ultimately ended up being probably the best thing to ever happen, and it worked out fine. And you do learn from it, and you're going to get knocked down, and it's going to lead you in ways and give you information and knowledge that you would have never had. And then the other part is letting people know that you're interested, and letting people know what it is that you want, and sometimes be specific, right? I mean, Holly, you're a busy lady. you got football, you have basketball. I mean, you're all over the place. Softball. I mean, like, come on. So for us as people who are interested in a job, and if you want to use your network, it's to not say, hey, I'm just looking for a job. Like, they could do anything. That doesn't help somebody kind of like maybe pinpoint, especially somebody who's really busy and successful and is trying to figure out things. But try to do some of your own homework of, this is what I feel like I can do. This is a skill set I have. Can you help me in this direction? So I think part of the work has to be on us to then be able to ask a mentor, a friend, somebody in your network, this is what I'm looking to do. And this is, do you have anybody in this field? Do you know of anything that I can do? So that you take a little bit of the weight of the general, right? Because then you don't know what to do with it. You're like, kind of forgot about it. So I think being more specific about what you want to do, I think is helpful. But it's also just letting people know, like, I want to know what college coaches want to coach in the WNBA. I want to know what other former players want to get their foot in the door, want to be a VC. And we don't have it. And Reeve talked about that, like the pipeline and the pool of coaches that, on the guys' side is, it's huge. But on our side, we don't have that network of like, hey, or we can go look, they want to be. So I think it's also just expressing to somebody, I have interest in coaching in the WNBA, because at some point when somebody's hiring or somebody asks me, do you know of any former players that want to get into coaching? You'll say, oh yeah, such and such asked me, you know, mentioned it the other day, or, you know, a week ago, a month ago, I talked to them. So I think it's that of also just don't be afraid to say what's on your mind and what you want. And again, it might not happen in that moment. And then it's also take jobs that, not that that's beneath you, but get your foot in the door somehow. It may be the VC that you're going to be struggling. You better get a roommate on, you know, when you're in the city, catch some rides, you know. So again, it's, I mean, which all of us have done, right? Is like, you'll do anything because you love the game, as Coop says. And I think Taj, Coop, and myself would all play for nothing. And we love that thing. We could have played forever if we could have. But those are some of the things. But I think it's the belief that you can do it and you'll figure it out. But by all means, it's not going to be just smooth with no bumps in the road or, you know, redirect here or there. You pick yourself up and learn from it and keep on moving. Because if you do it the right way and you treat people well and you're, you know, a good human, things are always they're going to work out. And it just sometimes just takes a different path or a different timing. But those are some of the things I think. Let people know. Let people know your intention and your intent, and help them out by being specific with what you want.
That's great advice. So there's a WNBA job opening right now, the Dallas Wings, and I saw an article that said, you know, there's only a certain amount of African American women former players. It's very small percentage of the head coaching positions, and we can do better with that. And so, like, I love it. Let's talk to people. Who wants that job? Who can we promote for that job? Who should we call the Dallas owners and say, this person would be great. This person's interested. Like, let's all take more of a leadership role in making sure we're saying, hey, this. So I was really impressed with Tanisha Wright in the WNBA bubble. She just finished playing. I think this is her first or second year coaching. She was with Las Vegas for the first season this year. And she's in the huddle talking to people. And Bill Laimbeer got where he wouldn't come in the huddle and start his piece until she was done. He had so much respect for how she was communicating with the players. And I'm like, she's going to be good. I can see it. So we need to be promoting and talking about these candidates and women so that they can get jobs and be represented well.
I will also say really quickly that Bill Laimbeer is really good about that. I know people don't like him because of his playing, but I was his assistant, Katie was his assistant, and that was something he always did. He developed assistant coaches to become head coaches. He didn't want you there the whole time being his assistant. He made you run plays on the board, do pregame speeches, talk to the players. That's his way to develop players. And I appreciated that. I know Katie did, I'm certain, and Tanisha will as she keeps moving. Excuse me, on in her career. Thank you. And that was something that he always did. And I really appreciate that from him, that he was always asking me what I wanted to learn about. Whether it was like I would sit in on GM calls because I said I want to learn about the GM stuff as well. He was like, okay. So I would sit in and listen to those calls and the discussions. What else you need to learn about? He was very open and a great mentor for that, especially with former players in the W.
Okay. I love it. I love that you brought that up. Okay, Cynthia, I have a question for you. I just saw something really neat that's happening in Los Angeles for the National Women's Soccer League, where a group of women, I think it's all women. A lot of them are celebrities, whether it's Eva Longoria or I saw Candace Parker and her daughter just bought in, Sierra and her daughter. Why aren't we seeing more former players? I think we see it on the men's side, you know, with Michael Jordan and some players like that. But why aren't we seeing more players invest in teams and become owners and have that ownership stake?
Well, you mean WNBA players?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a apples and oranges type of thing as far as finances go. If we make that type of money, I'd invest in it as well. So I think that's one of the hurdles. The other thing, I think the W needs to reach out to former players more and make them a part of the foundation of what the W is, what they're trying to do and the direction they're trying to go in. We have the passion. We brought the noise when it was our turn. And I think we should be a part of helping to continue the growth. of the W and the direction of the W. I love where we are, where the W is right now, but I can't wait to see where they go and what they become a part of. And so for me, that's my thing. Like like I said, I love basketball. So, you know, that's a part. I know universities, for example, universities call on their alumni. Then I think the W need to do the exact same thing. I love coaching. I love teaching. I'm sorry to continue to reiterate this. I love basketball. And that means every part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every part of it. But the thing that I want most for the W is for it to reach a point 60 years from now where we have players making multi-million-dollar contracts. In order for that to happen, we've got to have and maintain a solid foundation. So, you know, I think we need the W would serve them best if they reached out more to some of the former players, because we want nothing but the best for the W.
Okay, I saw an amen in the comments from Sheryl Swoopes. So amen. Well, Taj, you're in a position now.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Heard all
Holly,
this.
I will say that.
Just raise the roof. She's been
doing it the whole time.
You know I did.
Honestly, Coop, that is my newly created position, is that I am going to be engaging former players more in the W and the mission that the W has now, the buckets that we're heading towards. So that is actually part of my job title.
Yeah.
I just had a great idea. How about a Legends Clinic? I would sign up to be taught basketball, like go to the Legends Clinic where it's like
make sure that wrist is good from that bike ride, though. We gotta make sure all this arm is.
How about a Legends Clinic? Can we work on that? Let's. I love it. Though. Cynthia, you said we brought the noise. You did bring the noise, but you can still bring it because you're still names. You know, people are still intrigued and want to. Where's Cynthia Cooper? Oh my God, I remember. You know, they still want to live on that noise that you brought. So, okay, I know.
I still have a first step too. I'm just letting everybody know. My first step is still ridiculous.
Step. Okay, my one goal coming out of this, we want a Legends Clinic where she teaches us all right. Okay, so let's open it up now for questions from the group. Bridget, I believe you're going to run this section for us so that we can get questions. Let us know what we need to do here.
I'll go first. I have a question. And Taj, I'm probably going to direct it to you since you were at the NBA and now with the WNBA. Mm-hmm. Why is it, do you think that when I look at like a swing Cash, I think I saw Catch on here somewhere. Catch early on because she was a part of the Pacers. Yeah, thank you. Why is it, do you think, that the WNBA is losing great former players and the NBA is gaining some great former players when they put them in positions? So I think the position Swin has is incredible. I think she's opening so many doors for former players. Why is it that the WNBA can't see what the NBA is doing when it comes to former players?
I don't know if we can't see per se, but I think it's the ability to have the monetary budget to be able to do some of the programming that the NBA has. And that's, of course, what everyone says, but more so for us, as you know, the WNBA has a limited budget. We're not even a third of the NBA's budget. So for programming like that, it always goes through the NBA. So I worked for NBA Player Development that does the assistant coaching program for former W, former G League, former NBA players. I was helping with that. And we recognize that we need something like that, but it's going to take much more time. And those are things that I am also working with because that is part of my title. How do we get those sponsors in to help where we can send them to teams? Because I don't know if you know this, but the assistant coaching program, when we send players to teams, we pay, the NBA pays for that. The team doesn't have to pay for that. So if former players want to be on WNBA teams, the WNBA is going to have to fund that. And that's something that we have to find the funding for. As far as losing great players, I'm of the same. There is Allison Feaster, Carol Lawson just left Boston to go to Duke. Teresa Weatherspoon is with a G League. Mary Andrade is with a G League. Chastity Melvin, who I've seen on here, was formerly with a G League. But for us, in order to get our former players in positions, one, we have to have more clear ideas for the WNBA teams of how we're going to use those players and if they're actually going to be considered coaches, assistant coaches, whether it's video coordinators, player development, whatever they are. So that's the first piece, is having a great foundation of how we're going to use these players. We don't just want them on teams where they're not learning and developing. The second part is getting the funding for a program like that and having it be consistent funding, where it's not just 1 year and we have to drop it because we lose money or we don't have the money for the next year, but something that's going to be funded for, let's say, 10 years to get them into WNBA positions. Like Katie said, having a couple of coaches say, hey, we're going to hire former players, it's great, but we need more. And just like with the Dallas position, like, we don't have any set rules about hiring former players. It's a suggestion, and it's a help, because if you hire a former player, you get an extra coach. But that just came about. Go ahead, since you've been in the G League and you're a WNBA assistant, just about that process.
Oh, yeah. So first of all, the G League experience was a great experience. For me, I don't know, I think I was able to learn a lot more just because I feel like on other staffs, or as you talked about networking, I was with a lot of the guys, and there wasn't really any intimidation, especially coming in from the assistant coaches program. So they were just all like, well, you're not going to take our job. Like, there was like, they weren't even thinking I didn't feel that way with anyone on my staff, from the Charlotte Hornets staff so I just kind of got to get in the meetings and listen and give my, advice and share what I thought. But the relationships I made with the players, everyone was pretty respectful. So I really enjoyed my time with the G League. And I would have loved to actually have stayed on the men's staff and coached the men. I really enjoyed that. So, and then obviously Sandy calling, just welcoming and asking me to, be on her staff and going through that interview process. That was great. I had always wanted to come back in the WNBA and coach, but like we've all talked about on here, there are few spots, and it's all about, networking and people having to know that you have interest when they're about to hire, because everything just happens so quickly. So a lot of people thought because I was coaching in college that for some reason I didn't want to coach in the pros anymore, but it's just like, you got to build your resume. You still got to coach. So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like, if I don't take the college job and I'm just sitting out, they're like, what are you doing? You aren't coaching. Now I take the job. They're like, oh, you don't want to coach in the WNBA or G League anymore? So it's just like, it was a very challenging experience for me all around, from going to the G League to college and then in the WNBA. But I've had three very good experiences, and I've learned a lot and learned a lot from the coaching staff in college, G League, and the WNBA with Sandy and her staff. So for me, it's been I say we make plans and God laughs at us, but it's helped me. It's helped me a lot with different situations. So
awesome. Of course, you're talking about Sandy Brondello. You coached with Phoenix Mercury this season in the WNBA bubble. So thank you for that insight. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think it's maybe something we can get into and talk about moving forward, of being able to do multiple things, right? So if the finances aren't there to support a full-time WNBA coach, how can they supplement, whether it's through a G League, like can you marry some of these opportunities so that the funding and the resources are helping many layers of the coaching for former players? I think there's a discussion to be had there. All right, any other questions out there? Are we missing anything?
Can I jump in real quick, Holly?
Yeah.
Tamika. Hey guys. Hey everybody.
Hey, Tamika.
Hi. I would turn on my camera, but I look a hot mess right now, so I'm not. But I just wanted to kind of chime in on the last question that Cheryl just asked. I think, taking note from what everybody said, definitely the money, as Taj mentioned, just the consistent funding. But, I think the number one thing, and even for going through the process last year and trying to find a coach, is really trying to, like, every WNBA coach WNBA team has the opportunity to bring on board a former WNBA player. But one of the things that the opportunity, like Katie talked about, your name out there saying that you're interested and that you want to be a part of that. And then I think probably the most important thing is like networking. And I think even during this time, one thing that I found myself doing is I've literally signed up, for all different types of conferences. And I mean, they got so many different free conferences going on. So like, I sign up for stuff, even if I, can only show up for a couple minutes or there for 30 minutes and not the full time, but really trying to network. I know normally our normal networking time would be actually having that face-to-face interaction, but since we can't have that, trying to find other avenues that you can do that. And, I think to answer your question, Holly, is like, as far as like the supplemental, one thing that I really started doing when I was playing was doing speaking engagement. And, that was a way to be able to supplement, especially when I stopped going overseas. So I think it's the same thing as former players. And once you retire, and, even for the coaches that are on here, is using your platform that you have. What else can you do in the off season? Well, kind of to what Chastity just talked about, some of the NBA coaches don't really feel like the WNBA players or coaches will be able to come in and take their job. However, I will say I agree and I don't agree, because now that more NBA teams are hiring WNBA coaches, you do see a little bit more of a territorial aspect for some of these coaches that aren't necessarily don't feel like they are going to be able to keep their job, with a lot of coaches trying to hire more females on their staff. So, I think this kind of ties in everything. To Katie's point, if you want to coach in the WNBA or the NBA, honestly, put your name out there and let people know. I would tell everybody, for me, I don't want to coach. I have no aspiration to coach. I love where I'm at right now, but I also love the opportunity, and I want the opportunity to be able to have more former WNBA players come through the Indiana Fever and through the league overall, because I think it helped our game grow. Why I'm not on the NBA side, I want to be on the WNBA side. I could do the same thing and make way more money than I make on the NBA side, but I made a choice that I want to see our game grow and our league grow. And hopefully, like Cheryl said, or Coop, I don't know which one of you guys said, one day I want multi-million-dollar, I want that for the players, but I also want that for the staff, like the NBA does. So we got to help build everything, not just from the player standpoint, but from the behind the scenes standpoint. We can all do that together.
And Tamika, you brought up one other interesting point I wanted to point out. There are a lot of jobs in the leagues that are not just coaching. I remember you were still playing 5 years before you stopped playing. You told me out loud, I want to be a GM. You went and did internships. You furthered your education. Like, you had a specific plan to become a GM, and you've done it, but it's because it took years of planning and a specific targeted approach. But there are lots of jobs, whether it's GM, marketing, ticket sale, there's a lot of jobs available for former athletes. And I would love to see more former athletes in our front offices in multiple roles. I think that would be very healthy, because nobody can understand it. And Cynthia, to your point, we have to bridle that passion. We're here because we're passionate about the WNBA and about basketball in general. So let's bridle that passion and keep that in the family, so to speak. All right, any other questions? Are we missing anything else?
Yes, I was wondering if I could ask a question.
Yes.
Hi to everybody.
What's up, T. Moore?
First, I want to say, there's a couple of things I want to say thank you for. The first thing I want to say thank you for is Sheryl Swoopes. I want to say thank you to you first before I ask my question. She was the first person that actually gave me an opportunity to actually even interview for a college job. She brought me in as somebody that I didn't know anything. I was coaching high school. I've always loved to coach. She was the first one that gave me an opportunity. So I want to say thank you for that to start off. For those that don't know, I just made some history recently. I was hired as the first African-American woman to coach a college men's basketball program at Mesabi Range College. Yes, so I am the only current head men's basketball coach in the country. And the reason why I bring that up is exactly what you guys are saying. I didn't care if it was men or women, but the fact that I now am building a bridge for the next generation as far as on that part of it, what you guys just said is how do I get over those barriers of knowing that I want to move forward after this? I know I'm not looking to stay at Mesabi for a long time. It's small, but it's a start. It's my foot in the door. But my interest of coaching has always been there. I even started my own semi-pro men's team, a men's league. I have teams across the country right now that'll be kicking off in April. How do I not do too much to make people think that I'm trying to do too much? But I want them to know that, like, I know what I'm doing and I would love to advance myself from this point. I know the intimidation of, okay, I'm the only woman head coach of a men's program right now. So how do I not push people away, but at the same time, getting myself an opportunity moving forward? I don't care if it's the WNBA or NBA. I want to coach. So I just want to know, what do I do to make sure that I'm not making it a hard thing for me moving forward, knowing that I made this history part right now?
So I'll just say one thing. How far are you willing to go backwards? Are you okay with being a G League assistant? Is that something you're okay with? Because now that you've reached as a head coach of this college, where is your next step? And I know you said anywhere, WNBA, NBA, G League. So for someone like me, I can immediately call the people that you need to speak with if you're going to be okay working in like a G League atmosphere where you don't have the same accolades that you maybe had at Mesabi, and it may not go to anything else, but you going to another college afterward. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the questions too you want to ask yourself in the position you're at now and where you want to go from there. If you do need to be a G League third assistant, like Chastity mentioned, are you okay with that? And then the next year, maybe not having that position, maybe in another one. It just literally, let's have a conversation offline about that, because now that I know you want to do that and the position that I am in, I can now help and assist you with that, because again, not only is that part of my job with the W, but is also, as Cynthia and everyone else said, my passion is to help former players be relevant in what they want to be relevant in today.
Yeah, I think even answer that, I don't want to cut you off, but just to answer that part, like I started off just starting my own semi-pro team and I've been having it for 4 years, won a championship 2 years ago. And just to see the development, it's like, okay, I started a women's team that's in conjunction with my men's team, and it grew to the league itself. But for me, I'm willing to do from the bottom up. I don't believe in just being handed something. I like to prove myself. I'm always about giving 110%. If that's filming games, I want to start there. I'll start wherever. I just don't want to intimidate people by going to this historical job first. And then it's like, well, what else is there? So that's the main thing.
Go ahead, Katie. One thing I'd say is kind of show face a little bit, like all of us going to NBA practices or reaching out college practices, men's, women's, and because again, part of coaching too is trust. There's a loyalty to it, because it can be some people are about themselves, right? It's not always about them. So part of it is actually getting to know people. So maybe set up times in any place that's close to you, or if you have a dead period where you're not working as much, that you can go somewhere and email the coach, text the coach, say, hey, I'd love to come in town for a couple days and pick your brain and watch practice. And it could be the NBA, it could be WNBA, it could be college. And I think the FaceTime, again, somebody shooting you a random email, if you've never had any interaction with you, don't have anybody that has mutual friends that vouches for you, we all know, right? And so again, building some of those relationships and rapport, I think would be helpful too, is having FaceTime, because it is, at the end of the day, you want to have trust and some loyalty on your staff. And it means a lot, because you're going to go through all kinds of stuff. And you already know, because you're running a crew. But I would say that would be something too that you can do if you have some downtime, if you, even somewhere close where you can kind of reach out and do that.
Then I say just win, baby, because if you're winning where you're at, you'll get media publicity, you'll get attention. Like that's the most important thing, is doing a good job where you are instead of eye on the next thing. I always think that's important. I have a personal saying, make the big time where you are instead of always trying to chase the big time, and then you will be successful where you are.
And that's a
Did you want to say something?
Okay, y'all gonna let me talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, actually, I wanted to just really encourage you to not give up the aggressive, the energy, what got you in the position you're in right now, the go-getter, the knocking down, the breaking through ceilings, the breaking down doors. That aggressiveness is okay. I know some people say it's not okay for us women to have that level of aggressiveness, but it is okay. It's okay to do in certain times and in certain, but you have to be confident in what you're doing and who you are and what you bring to the table. And you can't be apologetic for that. You have to be unapologetic for that. You have to be empowered because you are great at what you do. And in addition to that, like Holly said, win, because winning solves so many problems, aside from just the visibility that you would get from winning, but it solves so many other problems and opens so many other doors. And then it garners interest and gets you out there and makes you visible. So for me, keep that same fire, keep that same energy. I mean, I want to coach pro. I want to coach pro in the NBA, WNBA. I can coach guys. I used to go buy guys, so I can definitely coach them. I'm just throwing that out.
Can I make a statement or comment?
Yes,
I
was going to say, where are men at? I see men on.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from you yet. Let's go.
My name's Johnny Davis, and I'm the chairperson for the NBRPA. And I've noticed that quite a few of our board members are on this call, as well as our CEO, Scott Rochelle. So your voices are being heard. I can really understand some of the things that I've heard, because I too played in the NBA. I also was a head coach in the NBA for two teams, Orlando and the Philadelphia 76ers. I was in the front office with the Atlanta Hawks as assistant to the president at the time. So all total, I spent 38 years in the NBA. I can say with great certainty that some of the best basketball I've ever seen was played in the WNBA. So I'm honored to be on this summit with some of the greats that I see out here. And I want to go back to something that Ms. Catchings said earlier. This notion that you have to go to the NBA to have the ultimate success is just not true. Now, I will say that's where the most money is being made. So if that's part of your motivation, then yes, by all means. But you can take what you have, which is a beautiful game, and develop it, and think about all the talent that is trying to now come back into the WNBA. If you can keep that talent and nurture it, by all means, now you begin to improve the product of what where you are and what you're trying to do. I think a question comes in for each player when they can no longer participate in the game as a player. That question is, who am I now and who do I want to be? Another question that comes in is, who do they think I am? And you have to be very secure in yourself and answer that question that I'm a very confident person. I know what I'm doing. I'll do the homework. And it's not gender-based at all. It's strictly about who can do the job. Now, when you say, I want to get out into the NBA world and do coaching there, do you realize how many former NBA players are also looking for those opportunities and asking themselves that same question of who am I And I now need to kind of go into this coaching thing. And that pool is so heavy that it just can't carry everyone that wants to do it. But that doesn't mean that you're not qualified. I think, and again, I've been in the NBA and around it for almost 40 years. When I look at the WNBA, I see so much potential there to grow the sport, to grow it with our fans when we finally get them back. And the level and the purity of the game is fun to watch. And so I think you have a gem right there. Don't think that the NBA is everything. Yes, it's a lot, but it's not everything. And I think the WNBA product itself can be improved to the point where you're now turning out general managers, you're turning out coaches, assistant coaches, video people, staff personnel, even owners, as we heard earlier. So don't ever think that, you know, this thing is so monumental that I can't climb it. You can. But the first order of business, again, is to know who you are, and then what is your plan to get there. And once your plan is in place, you must now execute that plan with the same diligence, the same preparation, the same discipline that you had that allowed you to become one of the best basketball players in the world. If you do that, good things will happen to you because you will be what they call qualified and certified. I just wanted to add that in. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Yes, I thank you so much. I think one of the things that we forget to talk about, and Cynthia, I feel it coming through the screen with you, is I'm competitive. Everybody in America wants to work at ESPN, and we have to be competitive. And I think that's one of my pet peeves with women sometimes is we don't think it's okay to be competitive out loud. So if you want those jobs and you're vying with the NBA former players or other coaches, be competitive, just be better, be as good as you can be. And I want to start making it okay to be outwardly competitive for women, because like, I'm that girl in the airport. I'm going to get to the gate before everybody. Like, I'm competing every second of every day with everybody, but I think it's a good quality. All right. Any other questions that we have before we let you guys go?
Holly, I don't have a question. I want to add something on to what you just said and to Coop's statement. First of all, and I put this in the chat, like, I thank you for saying that, Coop, because lots of times we, and especially as Black women, you know, we get viewed as being that angry Black woman when it's our passion that's coming out, right? The other thing I want to say is we talk all the time about needing the support, right? From the league or even from our NBA counterparts, from our brothers. But at some point, we as women, Black, white, brown, it doesn't matter, we have to start supporting each other, right? We have to start uplifting each other and saying, example, Timor, right? Like, we know what you're trying to do. And if we're in a space where we hear people talking about that, our mindset is, well, I don't want to help her out because she may have more than me or better than me. So instead of helping Timor out, we'll go and help a man out, right? Or we'll go and help someone else out that we don't even know or have that relationship with. So I am so grateful. I know I kind of welcomed you all, but I am so grateful for this conversation. And Johnny, I appreciate you stepping in your comments, because I think they were right on time, right on point. So I just appreciate this opportunity and thank all of you for giving us this platform. Thank you, Sheryl. You know, I think some ways that support can look like is something I'm trying to do personally is, so I noticed Sharika Wright is on here. She's a up and coming coach, former WNBA player, played at Purdue. I love Coach Wright. She got a head coaching job. I'm tweeting everything I can about Sharika. Great hire. She'll be great. You know, I'll set a goal to support Coach Moore now and maybe buy some tickets and give to kids in her community, or find ways that I might not have all the money in the world, but I can support you with my time, my platform, and in small ways. And so when we see people around us and former players in this alumni association start looking for ways to lift each other up and support each other, because these small ways will build into something really big and really special.
And I hope we can all
And
do
I-
that.
And I just wanted to say one thing. I think, Holly, that's an excellent point. And I just want to say this one last thing. You know, when we get there, pull another person up, pull another female up, help each other, be a source that helps to build us women up in everything that we do. Like we said earlier, it doesn't have to be in coaching. It could be in the front office. It doesn't have to be in the NBA. It could be in the WNBA. We just let you know, coach, that we can coach men, women, and children. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm saying.
Thank
Y'all
you.
get me preaching.
All right. I hope that at least a Legends Clinic will come out of this, if not more jobs. Any other last comments or questions before we let you all go?
Can you hear me? It's
Yeah.
Bridget.
Coach Pettis.
Hey,
Bridget. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Absolutely, Cynthia. You hit it. It's just so many other doors. And don't forget the door of community. I mean, that's the door that I've opened. And I would love for the WNBA to come and be a part of what I've been trying to do.
You've got it, Bridget. We will help
you got it.
Let us know how we can help. Maybe put in the comments how we can help, and let's follow up on that.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Cooper, I know you wanted to say something before we go.
Me?
Was it you?
No,
Okay.
I've been talking too much.
Okay. One more person wanted to say something. Go right ahead.
I know, I'll say something. I think that I love our community. It has to get bigger, as Bridget said, and we have to develop ways to stay engaged. I'm never on social media. I have Twitter. I think that's it. But I've had the same cell number since, I don't know, 1935. Pitch it, it's 1935 now. And so having that community, as Bridget was saying, it makes you feel fuller, bigger. Like, even though I work for the W, I don't see myself as an executive. I still always see myself as a player. And my goal, my service, my heart is always to help players, male, female, young kids, older kids, anyone that is there and need help with this game and with life. And I think sometimes we forget about that, that there's a part that has nothing to do with what's on the court. And I think Bridget is expressing some of that in what she said. And we're here for that. And that's one of the great things about these panels and having former players come on, is to know, because sometimes you do need to know that you're not there alone hanging out. And I'm really appreciative that I got added, and I was able to add, I hope I was able to add value to the conversation. And thank you.
You all were. So thank you very much, Katie Smith, Taj McWilliams-Franklin, Cynthia Cooper, some of our wonderful legends of the game. We hope you've all learned something tonight, and we hope that you will take away. This is a wonderful network of alumni and alumna and wonderful people that you can reach out to. Use your social capital and turn it into something special for you. We thank you so much for your time tonight, and hope everyone is safe, healthy, and most importantly, go out and vote. We cannot get off of here without saying your voice is crucial and important. I'd like to thank the WNBA specifically for this season, raising their voices, elevating and speaking up for women who are often unheard and forgotten victims. So thank you so much. We'll continue to say her name and vote and be diligent citizens of the world. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Go vote, 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 vote.
Go vote.
Thank you all so much for joining us for the final session of the 2020 Legends Conference virtual series. And what a high note to end the Legends Conference on. Our deepest thanks to Cynthia Cooper, Taj McWilliams-Franklin, Katie Smith, Holly Rowe, and our board director, Sheryl Swoopes, for getting things going. This was fantastic. And as the lady said, it is voting season in America. So if you haven't already voted early, make a voting plan, cast your ballot, and let your voice be heard. Until we can see each other again, take care, stay safe, and give us a follow on social media at NBA Alumni.